want to be clear about this. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care where you live. If you come into our city, commit violence, we will use all the tools at our disposal to hold you accountable. As we move forward, IMPD will continue to maintain our strong, visible presence in downtown on those high visibility, high traffic weekends and major events to make sure that our community is safe. And I continue to urge our community to respect one another. As the prosecutor said, this did not need to happen. It just did not. We need to recognize our differences, respect those differences, and deal with our conflict without resorting to violence, because it's just not worth it. I appreciate the cooperation of our community and the downtown residents and businesses who continue to support their police department, each other, and work with us to solve our problems.
Chris Bailey, the chief of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, spoke on this.
Former football star Mark Sanchez is recovering after he was stabbed in Indianapolis overnight.
As the great PFT commenter pointed out, there cannot be a worse hangover than waking up in the hospital recovering from serious stab wounds just for a police officer to cuff you when you're in the process of healing.
In 24 hours, Mark Sanchez went from being a victim of a stabbing in a hospital now under arrest after surveillance video appears to show him as the aggressor in all of this. It happened just after midnight on Saturday. Police talked to the 69-year-old victim who said Sanchez approached his truck and the man said he didn't recognize who Sanchez was, but instead smelled alcohol in his breath, noticed some slurred speech. He says that Sanchez tried to get inside of the truck that he was working in. Now, that surveillance video appears to show Sanchez grabbing this man and throwing him up against the wall.
Mark Sanchez was supposed to be calling a game between the Colts and the Raiders this weekend, and I'm about to say a sentence I've never uttered, nor did I think I would utter. An NFL broadcaster ended up in the hospital the day before his broadcasting duties because he had been stabbed, hospitalized, and arrested.
Again, this is all alleged, but there was an altercation that happened in a loading dock. Mark Sanchez allegedly took exception to how this delivery driver was parking, invoked the manager wouldn't want you to be there, attacked the 69-year-old, which, by the way, there are some photos that have surfaced online of the condition that victim is in.
We don't want to watch any of those, right? We don't want to.
The picture is brutal.
It is hard to look at. The man apparently defended himself, attempted to pepper spray Mark Sanchez, which, according to what's out there, for the moment stopped him, but then Mark Sanchez went again to attack the man, who then defended himself. And thankfully, I did a cursory search before, and I found it very odd that Mark Sanchez wasn't the listed victim on this, which gave people pause that I'm sure some people in the media regret not displaying initially, because the takes were flying, Dan.
Here's what we know thus far. All right, let's start with the police scanner that was played on CNN from this incident.
One of the officers on scene inside the bar to make sure we lock that bar down, treat it as a crime scene, don't let anybody air out for now.
James Boyd of The Athletic would report that the Marion County prosecutor, whose name is Ryan Mears, says that Mark Sanchez, the former NFL quarterback of, most famously the New York Jets, and now with Fox Sports, has been charged with a level 5 felony involving serious bodily injury. So what happened exactly? Sanchez, who now works for Fox, was in town to participate in the call of the Las Vegas Raiders-Indianapolis Colts game. A day prior to kickoff, reports would surface that the ex-pro had been stabbed shortly after midnight with critical wounds. Then came the twist, wrote Mike Florio. Sanchez had been arrested in the hospital for battery with injury, unlawful entry of a vehicle, and public intoxication. NBC News would print Sanchez, who is 38 years of age, allegedly assaulted a truck driver while intoxicated in Indy before the victim pulled a knife and stabbed him multiple times in what is being described as self-defense. That's according to a court affidavit. In another paragraph, it reads, the truck driver, identified in court documents only as PT, was working for a company that recycles used cooking oil at the time of the incident, per the affidavit. It would continue. Sanchez allegedly told the driver he and his truck couldn't be at that loading dock before the video would show Sanchez grabbing and throwing PT towards the wall of the Westin, as in the hotel. The court doc said PT realized things had escalated and he was now in physical danger, so he would reach into his pocket, he grabbed pepper spray, and sprayed it in Sanchez's face. NBC would report that the pepper spray did halt Sanchez for a moment, though after wiping his face, he went towards the victim once more. Thus, PT stated he feared for his life, and he stabbed Mark Sanchez. Indy Star would also report, court documents indicate the 69-year-old man who suffered a laceration to his left cheek was defending himself. He was treated and released from Methodist Hospital. Photos of the man shared with Indy Star show him on a hospital bed, bloodied with a neck brace and a large gash on the left side of his face. If you really want to find those, you can. We're not showing them. Prosecutors will go on to say, where this incident took place was an area of the city which was very well covered by surveillance footage. There are multiple angles of surveillance footage which capture the events that occurred. And in addition, we had a number of civilian witnesses who came forward with provided information about what took place for us, though we need additional info, and Chief's team is working on that. So there's a few different schools of thought. Let's start with this. The first being, all of this that took place is a travesty. It doesn't matter how rich you are, how famous you are. Arguing over a parking spot. And, Sanchez being judge, jury, and executioner of who's allowed to park where was really weird. It was a weird wrinkle to the story. And I hope everybody recovers from the injuries that they suffered. There's another really ugly part about this, and it is the response from MAGA. So Mike Braun tweeted, I've been clear, city leaders must do their jobs and hold criminals accountable. When Indianapolis headlines national news for a lack of public safety, it hurts our city and our state. Hoosiers deserve better. Praying for a full recovery for Mark Sanchez. Okay. And then there was another guy, Micah Beckwith, who called it unacceptable and law enforcement just want to do their jobs, blah, blah, blah. Indiana deserves safe streets and leadership with the courage to deliver it. So that was gross, right? And then I'm going to pull up this other tweet from none other than Dan Dockich, who is a former Indiana University basketball player. He took over for Kelvin Sampson and sucked as head coach. And he has been fired multiple times because he is a bigot. So where's the perfect place for him to go? Outkick, of course. He tweeted, Sanchez or anyone being stabbed downtown Indy should not be a surprise. We have a ton of fatherless and armed African-American kids descending on downtown Indy every weekend. If that offends you, F off, as the chief of police Bailey and Rev Harrison have told you this. So, I mean, there's so much wrong with Outkick. And there's so much wrong with Dan Dockich. So I'm not going to waste much more time. What I will say is this. There have been so many people who have been really quick to delete their tweets and delete delete tweets and delete messages that they have given and sent because they are completely in the wrong. Will they apologize for this? No, that's not the playbook. They'll find a way to double down, unfortunately. It is grotesque to see this sort of behavior, and at the same time, considering what we have been living through, not a shock in the slightest. So I reiterate, I hope everyone makes a speedy recovery, and when we have more on this story, we will bring it to you.